Hey onda, thanks for watching Doing Life with Jenny. If you're new here, in June of 2023, I moved from St. Louis in the US to Mexico to the state of Hidalgo. Today we're talking about my friend Sammy the Black Lab, specifically about my experience with him and the vet here. Before we get into his medical issues, let me give you a bit of a background story. I have always been a beagle mom. I think I've had 5 beagles total during my lifetime. And so Miss Ruthie Ann, came with me from the States when I moved to Mexico. And she is a rescue. But this story isn't about her. I'm sorry, Ruthie. It's about Sammy. So once Ruthie and I moved to Mexico, I would take her for a WALK. And we came across this young man who was always in front of a store on the sidewalk. And so I observed his body language and I saw he was fine to approach. I did so very, very carefully. And he looked very skinny to me, but he also looked like he belonged to the store he was always sleeping in front of. So the next time I knew we were heading his way, I took him some food. Well, of course, dogs are so smart, and after a couple of times, he knew we were bringing him food. So after I saw that he was always sleeping in front of that store, one day I walked in to see if he belonged to the store owner. And he did not. They would just give him water and feed him sometimes. So I took Sammy to the vet to get him his vaccines and to make an appointment to get him neutered. Well, in between getting him vaccinated and getting him neutered, he developed this lump on his neck. Me and my zero vet experience thought it was an abscess, and the vet did agree when I took Sammy back. So we figured the best option is to have it removed while we were already getting him neutered, so we didn't have to put him under a second time. Because the vet said that it could heal on its own, but it's going to come back, so the best thing to do to resolve it long term is to go ahead and remove it. So with the abscess being on his neck and with my living arrangements at the time, we had quite the time with this Sammy boy. Okay, if you remember, I was living in an apartment that wasn't even really an apartment, it was just a room with a bathroom at the time. And they were working on the construction of my house, but it wasn't completely fenced in at that time. So I had to take him out on a leash, and it would keep opening up his incision. So we had to make a few trips back to the vet for that, but it always seemed like the vet knew what he was talking about. Everything seemed pretty normal as far as make sure he fasts before his surgery, drop him off in the morning, and then go pick him up whenever he's finished in the afternoon. But anyway, finally I was able to find a harness that fit Sammy so that he wouldn't be pulling on his neck. After I got him the harness, they did have to open him up again just to clean it, patch it up again to make sure he wouldn't get infected. And then at that point, he finally started healing. But that was the most stressful month of my life because he had the abscess surgery and got neutered. I already had Ruthie, who's an angel, and it's when I had Penny, the little dog I found in the box in the middle of the street. All in my tiny apartment, having to take them all out on leashes. So meanwhile, they're making good progress on the house. They put the gate in the front, so now it was a lot easier because the dogs could come over and play. They could go potty here without me having to take them on a leash. And at this point in time, I see Sammy is leaking blood. Not very much, just a couple drops here and there throughout the day. But for the life of me, I could not figure out where it was coming from. I was looking to see maybe Ruthie got mad and bit him, because sometimes he wants to play and she does not like to play, or at least not with him. So I'm looking him over, I don't see any wounds. So I'm like, okay, it has to be coming from his nether regions or from his nose or mouth, because I see blood is dripping, but I cannot find from where. So I'm trying to follow him around a little bit, waiting for a drop to fall, and I see it fell from his wee-wee area. So I'm thinking, oh great, the poor boy just had 2 surgeries and now he has a kidney stone or kidney infection or something of that nature. So I texted the vet, because here you can text the doctor and text the vet and text businesses. It's not super formal like in the US. And the vet asked for a picture, I sent it, and the vet thought it was TVT. So obviously I had no idea what that was. I looked it up and it's a tumor on the wee-wee area. So at this point, I'm kind of doubting the vet. I'm like, you're assuming this from the picture of blood I sent you before seeing him? And I thought the vet was just like trying to get money out of me. Because again, no vet experience here, lady thought it was some kind of kidney or UTI issue. So the next day I take him into the vet, thinking we're going to do an x-ray for kidney stones or something. No, the vet pulls back his wee skin and there is a cluster of tumors. I will not insert the picture. If you really want to puke today, you can look up TVT on your own. So basically, TVT is a contagious tumor spread via sex. It's very common among street dogs. You could also get it from like smelling another dog's urine. So it might develop on their face where they're sniffing it. Females can get it too. So the vet said we needed to do chemotherapy. He said it was very treatable and that a lot of times he sees success after about 2 treatments. So for each treatment, it was 1,700 pesos, and Sammy had to go each Friday. Okay, so we started this at the end of January. I'll put the exact date on the screen. And after each treatment, he will pull back the wee skin to see if the tumors were still there. Basically, after the tumors were gone, Sammy had to do 1 more chemo treatment, and then he would be finished. And after a couple treatments, we pulled back the wee skin. Well, the vet, not me. So I kept bringing him to his treatment, and each week the red spots would be a little smaller, but they just weren't going away. So come like the end of February, beginning of March, I'm like, okay, this is taking an awful long time. He said a couple of treatments, but obviously that will vary by dog, maybe by the size of the dog, maybe by how soon we caught it, a number of factors, right? But I'm like, this is taking a little too long. So I tried to do some research and see, okay, these red spots, do they need to go 100% away, or are they more like scars? And I wasn't finding a clear answer. One, I probably didn't have access to the right research, just whatever's available on Google. And 2, it was kind of leading me to believe that, yeah, the spots needed to go 100% away. Well, come the beginning of May, the vet kind of brought up the same concern. He's like, hey, I feel like this is taking a long time. I've been trying to do research, like, do these 100% need to go away? Or could they be scars? I'm like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but I wasn't really finding an answer. So he's like, how about we take a little, it wasn't like a biopsy, he just had to rub the little petri dish thing on his wee to take a sample of the cells. So we'll take a little sample and we'll see if there are any signs of the TVT cells still. I'm glad we did that because Sammy was fine by that point. So who knows how long ago he had been cured and we were still going to chemo, but better safe than sorry, I guess. And I was also very thankful that we finished up in the beginning of May because come summer, I don't have much of an income because I'm a teacher, summer break. And it was really sweet. On his last day of chemo, the doctor made this little sign for Sammy so we could take his picture. Sammy was such a good boy during his treatment. Obviously, he had to hold still so he wouldn't yank the IV out of his foot. He would be a little restless at times, but given his age, which is probably around 2, he was pretty patient to hold still for that long. So even though I had my doubts at the beginning, the vet was very knowledgeable. He explained everything clearly, and we became pretty good friends because we were there every Friday from January until May. And Sammy, the vet, and I would just sit there in the floor waiting for his IV drip to finish. We figured it was better to sit in the floor so Sammy wouldn't get any ideas to hop off the exam table and yank his IV out. So finally, I just want to end with a few differences between vets in the US and in Mexico. So in Mexico, you can just walk on into the vet if you need to, or you can get a same-day appointment or next-day appointment. And in the US, unless it's an emergency, you usually need an appointment, and it might be in a day or 2. In the US, it's very common for a group of vets to work together. So there might be 1 vet office, but there might be 2 to 5 vets working at that office, that they share the secretaries, they share the vet techs. So 1, they can share the expense of operating the business because they can share the equipment, they share the facility, they share the secretaries, etc. And then 2, it also helps you get an appointment more quickly because maybe if your usual vet is booked, you can get in with another vet. Whereas in Mexico, it's a 1-man or 1-woman show. They are the vet, they are the vet tech, they are the secretary, they are the janitor. So what does this mean for you? It means that you are the vet tech. So while the doctor was trying to get his IV in, I held Sammy still to make sure he wasn't jerking away. It meant when the vet took out the IV, I put the cotton ball on his wrist to stop the bleeding. To be honest, I thought I could probably do his chemo treatments for him the last few times we went. The last statement is not just at the vet, but different places in Mexico in general, is it's very informal, like the vet had his kid or kids there most days, whereas that would never fly in the US. Of course, just like in the US, there are good vets and bad vets. I did have a bad experience with a different vet. Do you remember my friend Canela or Gringa, who used to come to my apartment when I first moved here? I took her to a different vet for her shots. They did not even weigh her. So if you're planning on moving to Mexico, just like you would do back home, do your research, ask your neighbors, ask your friends who they recommend for vets, doctors, etc. So now everybody is happy and healthy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios!